Okay, hi. Let's get this party started. Um, Hello again, me again. Thank you so much again for joining us. My name is Frankie Concepcion, and I am the managing editor for Hayden's Fairy Review. I am so thrilled that you could join us today as we celebrate the release of issue 73 of HFR. Um, I'm incredibly proud and thankful for all of the work that our editors, associate editors, and interns have done to make this issue and event possible. These folks have dedicated so much of their valuable time to this journal and making sure that each piece and each contributor gets the attention that they deserve. So if you could just give it up for them in the chat, that would be really wonderful because they deserve it. Most of all, however, I am thrilled that tonight we are joined by four of the issue's contributors: Reema Rao-Patel, Caitlin Thorn, Aysel K. Basci, and Olivia Muenz, who will be reading their amazing work for you tonight. Before we get started, we wanted to acknowledge the 22 Native nations that have inhabited this land for centuries. Arizona State University's four campuses are located in the Salt River Valley on ancestral territories of Indigenous peoples, including the Acamel O'odham, Pima, and Peepash Maricopa Indian communities, whose care and keeping of these lands allow us to be here today. We know that a land acknowledgement without action is not sufficient, and we are making efforts toward equitable practices, most immediately by providing a number of free submissions for underrepresented writers for our print issue and keeping our submissions free for our web issues. Just a couple more housekeeping things before we get started. Just so you know, transcription is enabled for accessibility. Please feel free to use the chat as a space to celebrate what you hear. Feel free to share moving lines or reflect on the conversation, or just give each other a round of applause in the chat. If you see any names that you recognize, maybe give them a shout out. If you'd like to ask a question for the discussion later in the evening, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Throughout the event, HFR's senior editor, Susan, and our art and web editor, Patrick, will be sharing links to the author's work and keeping an eye on the chat. Finally, before I introduce our first reader, I'd like to announce that on Thursday, February 1st, HFR will be launching a contest in fiction and poetry. Each winner will receive a $1,500 prize, as well as publication in our 2024 print and web issues. Our judge for fiction is Benita Blackburn, who just a few days ago released her debut novel, Dead in Long Beach, California. And for poetry, we have Diana Coy Nguyen, whose poetry collection, Root Fractures, was released literally today, just today. More details are available on our website now, so please check it out and we hope that you'll submit. I believe Patrick is dropping a link to that in the chat as we speak. Okay, I'm almost done, I promise. But now I get to actually do the fun part, which is introduce our first reader of the night, Caitlin Thorn. Okay, Caitlin, you ready? So I'll start with the formal bio. Caitlin Thorn is a writer from Kansas City. Her work has appeared in Green Mountain Review, Parcel Literary Journal, The Paper Napkin, and Puerto del Sol, among others. She received a Miami Book Fair 2020 honorable mention for her nonfiction manuscript in progress, Riparian, Where Water Meets Land. Her piece, Awakat, Agovago, Avocado, The Corrupt Alligator Pear, was a 2014 notable Best American Essay. She currently lives and teaches writing in Boston. She also loves being a prose reader for Inch at Bull City Press. From the very first lines of Caitlin's piece, Built for Slaughter, it is easy to sense the brilliance, talent, and care and thorough research that went into this piece. Her writing was able to simultaneously illuminate the brutality and horror of the meat industry, even while rendering these acts and settings with intimate, almost tender prose. Of slaughtered cows, for example, she writes, Upside down, the cows were hooked and drained before they reach you. I imagine rivers. What's left in the wet insides that you hold is blood that isn't blood, water that runs red. Of her relationship to writing and to a writer beloved, she asks, what is our nonfiction doing to our relationship? What is the word creative doing to the truth of my version of our story? All in all, Built for Slaughter is a story that renders the outside world just as vividly as the inner lives of its subjects, and we are so honored to include it in issue 73 of HFR. Please give it up for Caitlin! Yay!
Thank you so much for that introduction. Thank you to everyone at Hayden's Ferry for the time you spent with this piece and for all of your work. Especially Susan for all the emails. Thank you. So happy to be here with the other amazing contributors. And thank you to all of you for listening and spending Tuesday night with us. This is excerpted from Built for Slaughter, an essay about Kansas. As Frankie said, this does talk a lot about the meat industry, so just a heads up about that. You write the time in blood on the table. You are waiting. Upside down, the cows were hooked and drained before they reach you. I imagine rivers. What's left in the wet insides that you hold is blood that isn't blood, water that runs red, myoglobin. We learn the term later for writing. Inside the plant, it doesn't matter. Iron meeting the air. This blood that isn't blood is the red of our red meat. For you, it's a clock. Your gloved fingers moving a blade, tracing sharp lines of numbers in the liquid, counting down hours and minutes until the shift ends. You've been living in Dodge and working simultaneously as an undercover reporter and meatpacker for about 2 months. I'm still memorizing your official job, Chuck Final Trim. You tell me it's not a very good title. It's more of a description. We're still adjusting to your second shift stories, the angle of your hunch over the table and your stiff back, you're too tall. The importance of knife sharpening, trying to learn the language of hand signals used to combat the machine noise of the factory. The guys using their hands communicating versions of easy money, we're tired, let's drink beer, and many, many versions of dick jokes, including, hey, I have a dick. These are often accompanied with strips of sliced inedible tendon flopped up onto the table. We have many conversations about how to respond and not respond to these gestures. You drive home in the second shift dark of rural night, the 2 a.m. red eyes of turbines watching, spinning shadows of white propellers. Boots off and showered, wet hair on your pillow. When you wrap them out around me, what do I bring inside? The slick of your boots on the wet concrete floors, the tight grip of your hands, one on the knife, one on a metal hook, the rip of the chuck that is the inside of a body, the flesh of thousands of animals, warm and wet, the cold, pounding, relentless noise of machines, the yells of the guys at your table, the pills swallowed on breaks, the aches of bodies, the thick smells of fresh blood, of astringent chemicals, of sweat, of worn, of fear, of death. The closest I got to the actual plant was the parking lot. Our first drive to Dodge was just for a pre-work physical. We didn't know this was actually going to happen yet. In a small town mall basement, a Cargill-approved nurse tested your grip strength and took your vitals. She listened to the sound of your heart beating. You squeezed a metal handle with each hand and pulled tight. She cataloged the data of your body. The numbers would say you were built for slaughter. In 30 minutes or less, the nurse decided you were healthy enough to join the Cargill team. I picked you up and we decided to drive by the plant on the way out of town. The dusty road of US Route 400 was teeming with cars. Approaching the complex, we saw a distant outline of a massive gated factory. It was clear from the speed of the lines of cars flowing in to start shifts or out to go home. We had no idea what we were doing there. I said that this is not a place built for people. You looked and were mostly quiet. Said, yeah, we're not supposed to be here. Barely past the first fence, I put the car in reverse and backed away from this place that would turn out to be the rest of our year. We turned east for home. There are far fewer but still visible women who work at the plant, whose backs are also bent, whose hands also worn. I ask you about them, wish you could hear more of their voices, but they are farther from you, don't work the same section, and it's harder to make friends across tables, across cultural understanding of genders. You write less about them, and I worry about this. I feel these women in my stomach, their hands touching the chins of their children, holding eyeliner pencils while they look in the mirror, tucking tissues into a pocket. Our conversations always default to the guys. You see couples sitting together during dinner break. Notice blue eyeshadow on some of the women. Tell me how strange it is to only see someone's eyes. Everyone in the plant exists in disguise, sometimes large yellow aprons, sometimes in baggy white lab coats called frocks, sometimes in face shields or goggles, hard hats, masks, and gloves. Some of the guys get to know you, talk to you about their girls. Everyone's partner is referred to in the same way, regardless of age or relationship status. Wives and girlfriends and mothers of their children and hookups. All my girl. They give you shit when I come into town and also advice. Matt says to take me to the casino's lobster buffet on Sunday. All you can eat and only $25.99. The role of being your girl is something I am both pretending and not pretending. My boyfriend really does work in a meatpacking plant. I am watching you put on work boots and hook clips to your jeans, hard hat in the car. I am barefoot and on the tips of my toes, reaching up to kiss you goodbye as you leave for work. I make dinner in your kitchen. I go to sleep and wake up to the sound of you showering in the middle of the night. You drink a beer on the balcony. The cold bottle on your hands feels good. You pace as you brush your teeth and then come put your arms around me. The stereotypical domesticity of our actions is fun to try on, but only because we know it's temporary. We have the privilege of leaving, the privilege of savings accounts, the privilege of discussions on masculinity and performance, the privilege of whiteness, of the language of academia, of no rush to get married, of IUDs and not committing to kids or no kids, the privilege of hetero, for you always, for me sometimes. We are writers trying on jobs and lives. You are going to work with a secret. On our drive to Garden, a giant satellite dish sleeps on its side in a front yard, like a tilted open bowl sculpture, a spaceship crash landed and waiting. It reminds me of the famous shuttlecocks outside the art museum in Kansas City. We pass Cimarron RV Park. I think about wind, about tornadoes. I wonder if you can hear the warning sirens out here, or just see the sky in the distance. Feel the rain and then the pause, the air warm and uneasy, the sky gray, then green, sometimes almost white in the distance. Nowhere to go but maybe a bathtub, maybe away from the windows. Nothing to do but hide. Maybe put a couch cushion over your body. Maybe pray. And then another feed yard, Ingalls. I wonder what kind of cow, you ask. My dad would know, I reply. My dad knows the specifics of Angus, Holstein, Hereford, Jersey. After these animals are your job, both to cut and to write, you still won't know this. It's not part of what we learn. On drives to my grandma's growing up, 2.5 hours from Kansas City to Stockton, Missouri, I started to ask my dad if the animals we were seeing out the window were meat cows or dairy cows. I couldn't believe some were going to keep living on the slow, sloping hills, and some would be driven away and killed. I wanted to know which ones were safe to love. We passed the Finney County line, and I think about the data you're still waiting on, waiting for the county to release their COVID numbers. There are 2 large meatpacking plants in Dodge. another in garden, and another in liberal. Together, you tell me they produce 20% of the country's beef. I turn over the word packing. Think of the way you smoothly fold your shirt sleeves and nestle them in a neat suitcase. I love this about you. This care next to my mess of a pile. The packing of a cow, of the ripping apart of body, of the drained blood, the room of heads. There is a room just for the heads. The heads dangle from hooks, skinless, positioned for packers to cut things out of. The chopped tongues. There is a worker just for the tongues. 6,000 cow tongues a day. Wrapped, stored, frozen, shipped. We tear and organize the body. We pack it. You tell me it's not really a room. It's more like a section of the floor that's sort of blocked off by walls. Am I stretching creative too far when I call it a room of tongues? Everything is connected to one long chain, you say. You shrug your shoulders slightly, a shaking off, and keep driving. A month after you quit, 4 months after Garden, I read a full draft of your article. You write a lead about a cow rewinding. It's writing that makes me stand up, that stays in my body after reading it. You only briefly reference the damage to your hands in the article. You write that they stay sore but are getting stronger. You call me after your friend, also source, realizes more of the reality of this article being published. He had just bought his wife a new car. What if something happened? What if he got in trouble? You cry and tell me he just said over and over, what are you going to do? The question changes as you and I keep talking. It's directed at me. What can I do? I know you care about this man and his family more than you do the article. I also know you're going to publish the article. You've done your best to protect him. You think it will be okay. Your editor thinks it will be okay. We hope. In the new year, we wait. You wait for edits and think about other stories. I wait for the end of the semester, try to hold my students through. We wait for vaccines, for deadlines. You answer everyone's first question. Yes, I still eat meat. It does turn out fine for your friend, also source. At a summer barbecue on the shore of a Kansas lake, I hold his newest baby in my arms. You think about what you want to write next. You think you want to write about the Dust Bowl, the next one that might be coming. Our conversations shift to wind, to dust. We begin to ask questions about water. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. I am genuinely tongue-tied at so many gorgeous lines that are just running through my head. The descriptions of the body, the cows, the cutting, and the bleeding. It's gorgeous. I love that essay. Thank you for reading that for us. And now I'm going to introduce Aysel to all of you present in the webinar today. Thank you so much for joining us for this reading. I will begin first with Aysel's formal bio, and then I'll take it up with my own personal introduction. Aysel K. Basci is a nonfiction writer and literary translator. She was born and raised in Cyprus and moved to the United States in 1975. Her work has appeared or is forthcoming in the Common, Michigan Quarterly Review, Washington Square Review, Los Angeles Review, Columbia Journal, Adroit Journal, Asterisk Journal, and in other literary journals and collections. It is now our pleasure to add Hayden's Ferry Review to that list. Aysel is retired and divides her time between Washington, D.C. and Dallas, Texas. When I first read Basqui's translation, A Stroll in the Moonlight, I could sense the moon's full glittering in the prose, gripping my attention in every word. This story of only 4 pages is a much longer meditation on walking in the moonlight as the narrator takes a stroll to settle some long overdue scores with the moon. It is only Basci who would have been capable of translating Ali's language into such mesmerizing likeness. The way Basci folds rhythm into prose and lines like, the moon I saw outside a little earlier, the moon I always see, parallels with the way she creates texture in the translated tongue at instances such as, my strings have a strange characteristic. To give the writing the perfect balance, it was my honor and privilege to get lost in this moon magic, this reverie of a stroll on a moonlit night where the writing hums like a lullaby. If I look a little further, I see it sending sly smiles to the Israelites leaving Egypt like a timid flock of ostriches. What a lovely image. And to that beauty wrapped in tulle dancing in front of Herodotus, inspiring odd ideas in Buddha sitting cross-legged near the Ganj River and seeping through the leaves of centuries-old trees in Sadabad to spy on the silk face coverings of a few beauties. It is always the same moon, with not a single line ever changing. Without further ado, let us welcome Aysel Basci to the virtual stage to take us through a stroll in the moonlight in her own voice and words. Aysel, you might want to unmute yourself.
Good evening, everyone. I am delighted to be participating in this wonderful event. Thank you, Frankie and Susan, and the entire Hayden's Ferry review team for publishing my translation, for organizing and hosting this event, and for inviting me to be a part of it. Tonight, I'm zooming in from St. Petersburg, Florida, where it is nice and warm. Turning to Asna's introduction of the piece, thank you, Asna. You did a real nice job. You pretty much said everything that needed to be said. This text is actually a letter written by Ali to a close friend, Ayşe Sıtkı İlhan. I will just add 2 points about the author before getting on with my reading. The first point is an obvious one and probably true for other authors as well. I used to think that one could get to know Ali by reading his stories and novels. But after reading his personal letters, which I only recently discovered, and there are quite a few of them, I realized that the best way to get to know him, the man that he was, is through his letters. To me, these letters are treasures. My second point is about a short but significant passage in the letter where Ali talks about the prospects of global warming in an understated and suggestive tone. But I must warn you, the passage is really short, and if you blink, you may miss it. What's amazing about this is the fact that Ali wrote this letter in 1932, some 92 years ago, when global warming was not such a hot topic. This, in my view, is only a small testament to Ali's brilliance, foresight, and intellect. It is for good reason that although he died more than 70 years ago, Ali's legacy endures and even grows. Here is A Stroll Under the Moonlight by Sabahattin Ali, translated from Turkish. I wasn't thinking about writing tonight, but for some unknown reason, I developed an urge to write about anything. My head is full of such incoherent, disconnected thoughts, and with such conflicting feelings, each a stranger to the others, I know no matter what I write, it will be inconsistent. So tonight, I decided to write as short, disconnected sections in the style the Europeans call aphorism. The cause of my sadness and these strange feelings is the short stroll I took a little earlier under the moonlight. Tonight, I settled some long overdue scores with the moon. This moment, which I have long been avoiding, finally caught up with me. The sly moon took advantage of my defenselessness, my loneliness. Just like everyone else, my friendship with the moon started during childhood, except I went further. Some nights, I used to borrow my father's binoculars from his military days and watch the moon for many hours. I knew every line on his face. But back then, we didn't say much to each other. Our real friendship, or more correctly, our relationship, I can't claim to be friends with the moon, developed in recent years. The moon looks the same everywhere. It has seen me in many places, and it is not surprised that I appear in so many different locations. In contrast, I am surprised that it appears with its identical face everywhere. Yes, there is never a change. This is the moon I looked at without understanding from a boat on Potsdam Lake. This is the moon that watched me from cold, lucid sky as I walked chattering in the frozen snows of Templin. This is the moon that dropped in front of me in Yozgat while I was wandering the streets, waddling, and guided me home. If I look back a little, I see it opening the way to Israelites leaving Egypt like a timid flock of ostriches to the Red Sea, sending sly smiles to Salome, that beauty wrapped in tulle, dancing at the terraces of Mahaeros castle and in front of Herod, inspiring odd ideas in Buddha, sitting cross-legged near the Ganj River, and seeping through the leaves of centuries-old trees in Sadabad to spy on the silk face coverings of a few beauties. It is always the same moon, with not a single line ever changing. If I look forward a little, I see that when there is nothing left of me in the world, this moon will continue to rotate in its usual calm, obstinate, and nonchalant manner. Perhaps thousands of years from now, one of my limbs, by then a patch of moss stuck to a rock, will watch the same exact face, while another limb, a drop of water in the Indian Ocean by then, will rise toward it during high tide. Perhaps one day, the same moon, while helping wild animals chase their prey in the wild forests covering Istanbul, will lighten by generating electricity with the help of special devices the buildings rising toward it from a magnificent city built in the South Pole. Not even a single line of this moon ever changes. The moon I saw outside a little earlier, the moon I always see. I told this moon many things, my hopes, my ambitions, that I never share with anyone, my unfinished plans for the future, and at times my bitter cries too. I talked to the moon about literature, fame, and eternity that will last longer than its existence. I talked about every possible subject. The moon knows everything about me. There is, however, an unresolved issue between us that has been going on for years. And despite all my optimism, it looks like it will continue like that. Whenever I take a stroll under the moon, I feel the need to have someone next to me, someone who keeps silent or talks, whichever is more appropriate, someone who walks with me. Despite being used to loneliness at such times, I feel the need for a friend, a companion. While walking under the moonlight, I need someone on my arm who will rest her weight on my body. And I imagine that when the moon sees me alone, it asks, "Where is your friend?" In ancient times, when I was still a child, I was able to say, "Too soon, wait a little." But time doesn't stop. Indeed, I can no longer give that answer. It is also not possible to give a different answer, not the one the moon expects. Perhaps it will never be possible. There are endless number of strings in each of us, and they are all different. Sometimes two people have similar strings that produce identical voices. Then they say, "We found each other." This is only true as long as just those strings are played. If other strings are played, it becomes clear that large differences exist even between such individuals. My strings have a strange characteristic. They are capable of vibrating like all other strings. I understand everyone. In contrast, I can't help but feel a certain, not a grudge or animosity, but perhaps disdain toward those whose strings remain silent when mine vibrate. And until now, I haven't met anyone whose strings produce the same vibrations as when my strings are touched. Just like when a piano is touched, a violin located in the same room produces similar sounds. I haven't found anyone whose every string matches mine. Is failing to find such a person my fault? It is impossible to explain this to the moon. The moon, with its unchanging face, is a symbol of mediocrity, and it laughs at those who are not mediocre. The moon is as blunt and as mediocrity, and just as cruel and as powerful. The moon, not even a single line of which ever changes through the years, tells me, with its usual detachment, mercilessness, and disregard, but at the same time with great clarity, that I am condemned to remain alone forever, and how horrible the consequence of not being ordinary is, how I would pay a heavy price for my sin of being created different than others. This is the moon I just saw outside. This is the moon we always see. I am not angry with the moon. I don't feel any resentment toward it, and I can't even imagine despising it. I know the moon is right and also very powerful. Thank you.
Thank you, Aysel. Listening to you and Caitlin as well has been lovely. It's been lovely to hear you both read your work. Next up, we have Olivia Muenz. Olivia Muenz is the author of poetry collection I Feel Fine, published by Switchback Books in 2023, which won the 2022 Gatewood Prize, and the chapbook Where Was I Again, published by Essay Press in 2022. She received a BA from New York University and an MFA in creative writing from Louisiana State University, where she received the Robert Penn Warren Thesis Award in prose. Her work has appeared or is forthcoming in New England Review, the Missouri Review, Poetry Daily, Michigan Quarterly Review, Gulf Coast, Conduit, Black Warrior Review, Massachusetts Review, Denver Quarterly, and elsewhere. Her writing has been supported by the Tin House Summer Workshop, Zooglosia, Virginia Center for the Creative Arts, and New York Foundation for the Arts. You can find her online at oliviamuenz.com and on socials at Olivia Muenz. Reading Muenz's poem Surprise was an experience that was ultimately cathartic. Muenz's skillful repetition and lack of lineation created a gorgeous sense of acceleration that pulls the reader along breathlessly as the voice explores and inquires. The voice speaks with a certain surety, even as it asks questions, and it asserts itself in a way that's nonstop, level, and ends in an exhalation. It's my pleasure to welcome Olivia Muenz to let the poem's powerful voice be hers.
Thank you. Thank you for that lovely introduction. That's so nice. I'm really grateful to be in this issue. In my first poetry workshop in my MFA, friend of mine, Ava Hoffman, who's just like one of the coolest writers around, had something published in Hayden's Ferry Review. And so this became a very early journal for me that I was just like, I want to be in that journal. So it's pretty special to be in it. I'm going to read the poem that was in the journal and a few other things, but I'll start with the poem and the issue. So this one is called Surprise. I'm at my residency. I'm at my residency residing. I'm at my residency where I reside. Where I reside, I walk. Where I walk, I eat. Where I eat, I sit. Where I sit, I think. Where I think, I stop. I've looked at many pages. I've looked at many pages of words. I have paginated many words. I have worded my way. I worded my way around my room. I have roomed my way around my words. I have weighed my roomy words. Do you know how heavy I am? Do you know how I am heavy? This is all you get. All you get is this. This is one. This is one dense block. One dense block is all this is. Is this anything heavy? Is this heavy thing my room? My room is where I walk. My room is where I eat. My room is where I sit. My room is where I think. Is this all this is? Put my words into a blood machine. Put my words into a cleaning blood machine. Machine my words into my heart. Machine my words into my heart through to my feet. What is this great machinery? What machine is this great? Stick a port right into my machinery. Stick a word right into my mouth. I am sorry this is all we have today. Today we have all this. Is this all this is? A heart bloodied by words, a machine stuck with words. I walk word to word around my room. This is all labor. This is a labor party. I'm having a party without words. How do I yell surprise in my heart? How is my heart a surprise? This is a labor movement. How do I move my words? How do my words move outside this room? This is a chant. I am yelling surprise in my room. In my room, I am a surprise. I am my room, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to report that I am only room. I hang pages all over my room. All over my room, I am face to face with my pages. When is a word shiny enough to become a mirror? When does a mirror become a word like surprise? In one short week, I will be only a surprise. I hang myself all over my room. Look at me, look at me, look at me. I am wallpapered language. I am language walled. I would invite you in to enter. If you would like to enter, I could simply invite you in, but I left my key in my other room. So I wrote that at VCCA, which is such a great residency, as I was procrastinating writing my book that I was supposed to be writing. So one day I'll get to that. In the meantime, I'm going to read from my first poetry book that has a little moon on it, so a good echo there. I wrote this book while I was bedridden and on a bunch of meds, and just kind of recorded whatever my brain decided it wanted to do. So this is the second section from that book. Here is my brain. It is writing this for you in Times New Roman to make us both feel better. We feel even. Here is my brain. Here is my brain on drugs. No eggs this time, only the good ones, the doctor ones, perfectly legal. I feel fine, perfectly regal. I don't feel pain. The earth is rotating on its axis, and so is this room, and so are you. We are fine. Welcome to my book. But it's not like that. Let me try to explain. Let me give you a real out. Have you ever punctured something tip-top? Have you ever forgotten your shoes? Have you ever spun around real fast and become a water balloon? Are you following all of this? But I do apologize for the inconvenience. Does that sound sincere? Can you press your ear to my heart to make our own calendar? I am trying here. I am crafting something out of nothing. That is my specialty. Some make macaroons or millions of dollars. Not me. But I am glued to my handcar. My partner untied his shoes. He got out. I pump myself one-handed. I use all my weight. I am so tired. The whole world is a mirage. Where does this thing end? But the bus is gushing us out one by one into Port Authority. Imagine being in the army. Imagine being deployed to Port Authority. Aren't we all? But I'm ugly from the inside out. I suck your voice into a balloon and pop it. I lose all my favorite bits. I retract from the sun, which is never a good sign. I don't look for good signs. I capture the flag. But I can't name the country. You ask what it means to belong. I'm thinking about surrounding things. I wrap my Christmas tree with a blanket to keep us cozy. It looks so bad out there. But I am in a big community with myself. I am the big leader. I am the defect. I don't want to pay taxes. I am crocheting a big safety net for all of us. I am working very hard. but the phone calls are not going through. Hello, operator, please give me a reel out. But I can't find the end of the line. It grows faster than me. I am playing a big game. I eat all the bits. But I never run out of bits. Do you like my routine? But only my temple is tender. I am tough luck, baby. I am down for the count. I am rained out. But don't let this get you down. Don't go all soft on me now. I am frozen in time. I am a big memory box. I am all meat. I can eat you alive if you let me. But it's just a little section of sadness. Rip open my heart, box of chocolates, eat them all, watch Matilda, suck an egg, what's it matter? But it's a little miracle to wake up and not know if the day is just starting or ending. I swear I'll make you so full it'll make you pop. But I am the big normate. I am fitting in fine. I am up to my ears in normal. I am business as usual. I am nothing to see here. But I lost my other popsicle. I am waiting in line at the counter. Can I get some assistance here? There must be a bucket somewhere. Excuse me, I am talking to you. But I woke up as a balloon. What I really needed was broth. What I really need is a talking to. Where is my circus to join? I am going back to school. I am learning it all till there's nothing left, so that I can pop it all back out to you. I will be rich. But it's coming out lumpy. The bits are too big. Should I get it checked out? Should I bring it up again? The no ones aren't listening. I can't make it louder in here. It is hurting all over. The air is one big swell. Well, isn't that swell? But we're just two associates vying for the same title. Will you name my daughter? Will she inherit this all from me? The next thing I'm gonna read, what should I read? Thank you. I'm gonna read a piece of flash fiction that was in this really wonderful issue in Michigan Quarterly Review called Soma Flights. Really cool, lots of really cool work. And this is called Patient. I was sick of language, so I started collecting rocks. Each time I had a thought, I'd throw a rock into a lake. The people in town couldn't get it. They tried very hard. They thought maybe I'd lost the ability to speak, so they started writing me letters in a show of solidarity. When they placed a full envelope next to me, I put a rock on top of it. They thought I was holding down language in case of a great wind. We're inside, they'd remind me, and I'd place a rock on their heads. Unsure what to do, they all learned sign language. This moved me so much, I rolled a boulder into a lake. It took all day. There were always hard hands in my face. The more desperate they grew, the wilder their arms flailed. They looked like windmills. When I caught an open palm, I put a rock in it. The townspeople became more serious. They held council meetings twice a week to get me back to language. At first, they focused on the why. They went to every nearby hospital trying to find my medical records. But there were attendants at each entrance whose job it was to bash in the skulls of anyone who came looking for answers. On their corpses, I placed the prettiest rocks I could find. The townspeople wept into a lake at all the casualties. They no longer cared about the why, which I would have told them to not care about in the first place if I had had the right rock. They decided to go after my supply. In shifts, Volunteers swept the town until they'd collected every rock they could find. They presented the mound of rocks to me closed off by barbed wire. What do you have to say to that? I opened my mouth and pulled out a rock. They realized they were working against something supernatural. They took down the barbed wire and planted flowers all around the rocks and dug a path to the middle of the pile where they made a crater filled with an array of cushions and cookies and candles. Go ahead, sit in your rocks, they said gently. We'll keep watch. And so I walked to the cushy place and took a nap, and when I woke up, I collected the best rocks I could find and spelled out ILOVEYOU. It says, I love you, I told them. The last thing I'm going to read is a really short poem called I'm. When I get good news, I take it as a sign from God. I'm a very good boy. I count my lucky stars, but never pluck them into my pocket. When the leaves change, I stand under branches to bear witness to them falling. Some things can't be taught, like when to ask the right questions or when to close your doors. If you would like to leave, just ask and I'll prepare your coat. For a long time, I've been looking for the right door. God told me heaven is one long hallway. I am something like a soldier or a cup of water. I know how to stand still. I'm like the center of the earth. I'm good to my core. I used to fight for the right of something. Now I sit in a pew to write stories for God. I write down prayers for a newsletter. I take my prayer list to the grocery store. There are so many people to pick up and nowhere to put them down. Get off my back, I tell myself, but there's nowhere to put myself down. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Olivia. That was beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your words with us. And thank you to all of you for being here and sharing your work with us. I'm really grateful to be here and to share this space with y'all. Okay, last but certainly not least, I'll be introducing Reema Rao-Patel. Reema Rao-Patel is a fiction writer from Chicago, a two-time Best of the Net nominee. Her work can be found or is forthcoming in the Los Angeles Review, Witness, the Lumiere Review, Flash Frog, and elsewhere. She is a Roots, Wounds, Words Fellow and has also received support from Tin House, Kenyon Review, American Short Fiction, and the Key West Literary Seminar. When she's not writing, she's exploring the city with her husband, 5-month-old son, and her almost 5-year-old pup. It's my great privilege and very good luck to introduce Reema Rao-Patel tonight. If you haven't experienced her work before, then you're lucky because you get to hear her words for the first time. She writes deftly about intimacy and its fraught relationship with time, how the people and places you know, like the back of your hand, will sometimes slip through your fingers like pool water. When I read her story, Color of Blood, for the first time, I was so deeply moved by how thoughtfully and carefully she writes about community and girlhood. Corinne and Uma, best friends spending time together under the summer sun at the community pool, are too old now to do some of the things they once did, like somersaults and cannonballs. Still, though, they are too young for the adult swim at the pool, and they find themselves still at odds with the identical blonde girls that can't spell Uma's name. In this story, Rao-Patel asks how someone can carve a place of belonging for themselves, particularly when that place never considers that person. To what degree can you change yourself to belong in a particular place? To what degree can you stay yourself as time goes by? And how can you hold still to the people that loved you and knew you best in the beginning? Reema Rao-Patel navigates these questions with an inimitable, with an undistinguishable and uncompared nuance and heart, and I am so grateful she is reading for us tonight. Please join me in welcoming Reema Rao-Patel.
Thank you, Haley. Thank you for holding this work with so much care. It means so much. And for Hayden's Ferry Review for giving it space, both in print and in this reading today. So I will be reading an excerpt that starts from the beginning. The sun is at its highest and hottest when Corinne Moran comes knocking on the door. Can Uma play at the pool today? No one tells her it'd be better to wait till it's cloudy out for fear of turning dark, or say things like, The people here sit out in the sun all day wearing nothing, the way Uma's mother does. Almost all of Corinne's strawberry speckled skin is for the taking. Only 2 little parts are sectioned off by a bright blue bikini. Uma asks for permission to go, but she doesn't really wait for an answer because she and Corinne have been neighbors and best friends for 6 years. At the pool, they used to practice somersaults and rate each other's cannonballs, but they're too old for that now. They prefer to keep their hair dry so it doesn't stick to their scalps and reek of chlorine. Wading in the water, they point out the ways their bodies, brown and pink, contort into new shapes with the ripples. Water drops cling to their crisping shoulders like jewels. They pretend to be dazzling mermaids. When the lifeguard, a sun-fried college boy with protruding rib abs, blows his whistle 3 times, it's time for adult swim. Uma and Corinne get out of the pool because even though they're 12, they're still technically children. Mrs. Moran still insists on chaperoning and reminds the girls to reapply sunscreen. It's important no matter the color of your skin. She says this part like she's speaking to no one in particular, just reading something off the back of the label. Uma doesn't have any of her own because her mother says it's an American thing and tells her to just scrub the tan off in the shower. Corinne offers to share her bottle like she always does, and Uma likes feeling included. She likes anything that makes her and Corinne feel more the same, even if the white cream stains her skin a gray purple. For the remainder of Adult Swim, they sunbathe on their chairs, limbs outstretched like branches. Corinne adjusts the triangles of her bikini top. Uma attempts to do the same with her tropical print one piece. She pulls at the yellow and orange flowers in places where she's outgrowing the suit. Cats, Corinne calls out. She rakes her hair with her sunglasses and looks across the pool. On the prowl, Uma signals back. It's code for Britt and Clarice. They're shiny, spray-tanned 15-year-old muses, girls they've admired since elementary school. With their feline gaits and zero supervision, they come to the pool and they pout their lips and flirt with the lifeguard. Uma assumes character by also smashing her lips together. She and Corinne cross and uncross their legs, trace a knee up to the sky, flail their pointed toes. We're sexy, Corinne sing-songs, and Uma repeats after her, savoring the words in her mouth like stolen candy. If Mrs. Marin witnessed their child's play, she doesn't say anything. During the next pool day, Uma notices burgeoning rounds on Corinne's chest for the first time, shaped like the sand they used to pile on top of each other. Actually, Corinne is fleshier all around. Her body curves where bony knees and hips used to prod out. Fluffs of curly brown hair line the edges of her bikini bottom. Seeing Corinne day in and day out had somehow allowed these changes to slip past her. Uma tries not to stare but can't look away from the way Corinne's body, new and improved, lays next to her. Corinne catches her watching and leans over. I know, right? Voice lowered and eyebrows raised like she's gossiping. My mom says I'm going through puberty almost exactly at the same age she did. Oh yeah, is all Uma says. She can't comment much, scanning her own body that's so flat she can see all the way down to her toes. A body that her aunts and grandmothers teased for getting stuck at 60 pounds for years. Her own mother prided herself on getting her period well into her teens and projected it onto Uma. You'll be late, like me. Uma stares at the inconsistent wisps of hair scattering her limbs like accidental pencil markings. Sometimes after a shower, she'd stand naked in front of the mirror until the steam blurred the reflection of her body. Faint lines of old finger drawings reappear. Flowers, hearts, squiggles, her name in cursive. Then she erases different parts of herself, her stomach, arms, face. She leaves her breasts for last, drawing 2 large circles where they should grow in. They still haven't. Uma wonders now what it might feel like to be Corinne, tracing her Barbie chest in the mirror. She looks back at Corinne, whose turn to where Britt and Clarice lay. Today, Corinne doesn't suggest their usual role play, though. A week later, Uma and Corinne lay head to head on Corinne's flower-quilted bed as if it's a fresh meadow, their Sunday ritual of lazing away the afternoon together. Uma is tracing her socked foot back and forth, left to right to left, along the headboard when Corinne says, I got my period. Uma sits up and stares down at Corinne's face. Like right now? To which Corinne says, like a few days ago. Like it's no big deal. Uma asks why she didn't tell her the day of, and Corinne retorts, "'Cause I'm telling you now." Uma decides to let it go and flips over onto her belly, propped up on her elbows, legs swinging. So, tell me, what's it like? Do you bleed all day or just at certain times? What does the bleeding feel like? Does it hurt a lot? Do you get really cranky and crave ice cream? The questions tumble out the way a child asks, why? Corinne continues looking up at the ceiling and lets out a breathy laugh. Come on, Uma, it's a period. We all get it. Uma wonders when that'll be the case for herself. She flips onto her back again and sighs at the ceiling. She thought Corinne would share this one thing, the way she does everything else. She worries that every pull in Corinne's deep belly will push her away. It only gets worse when on the first day of 7th grade, Uma and Corinne are assigned to different class sections. They won't share a locker bank nor identical routes to class like the year before, though the entire grade is still scheduled to eat lunch at the same hour, or return to normal even if just for a single 45-minute block in the day. In the cafeteria, Uma scans the long veneer tables by the windows, her and Corinne's usual spot, but she isn't there. The pangs of first-day abandonment devour whatever appetite Uma had. She's suddenly aware of looking like a lone seagull, bobbing and pecking around on an empty beach, like a measly 6th grader all over again. Her name sounds from somewhere across the room. Corinne stands up, hand raised. At first, Uma is relieved to be reunited, but as she walks towards the table, she sees a group of blonde girls she doesn't recognize. They don't look like the kind of girls she'd say hi to, and she's a little annoyed that Corinne already has. The 4 of them wear identical polos in varying pastels, layered over camisoles that reveal fleshy sand mounds of their own. The kind of outfit Uma's mother doesn't let her wear. Corinne introduces Madison Catherine Alyssa Brady, names in quick succession like a memorized song lyric. Girl she met in her morning geometry class. Uma finds out later that their names are all spelled with a Y, just unconventional enough to be alluring. It makes the childlike way they curl and swirl the tails of their Ys feel flirty. When Uma introduces herself, they ask, "How do you spell that?" Which makes Uma instantly loathe her mother, who'd always said, Uma is easy for Americans who can somehow spell and pronounce complicated Polish names, but not ours. Uma still doesn't fit in. The girls are in the middle of discussing their after-school plans at the elementary playground, the same place Uma and Corinne had first met as 6-year-olds, both of them confessing their love of jumping off the swings even though teachers didn't allow it. Corinne said she'll come, Madison says to Uma. The ringleader, she gathers. You could come too if you want, Corinne offers. She nods willingly, but lets her words sound purposefully nonchalant. At the playground, there is no playing. There's a lot of leaning on things. Madison, Catherine, Alyssa, Brady arranged themselves by the rubber-slotted stairs as if staging for the cover of a teen magazine. It's clear they've done this before. Corinne catches on and finds a place at the base of the slide. Uma shuffles awkwardly in place, like the last one chosen for a team. Then she wedges herself into the slide too, pressing between Corinne's shoulder and hard plastic. Uma, Corinne whisper whines through her teeth. She scoots over an inch so they're no longer touching. From afar, Uma thinks they might look like a coven, up to something, but what? No one knows. She remembers the times her mother went on about the children who loiter, the ones who end up on the news. This seems harmless. The group moves aside for 2 little kids who stumble their way up and down the stairs, up the stairs and down the slide. Their meandering giggles, a sharp contrast to the self-serious huddle. Aw, babies, Madison says. Corinne laughs and flips a lock of hair behind her shoulder, something she probably learned from watching Britt and Clarice. Doing nothing, Uma realizes, is the whole point. To be grown up is to assert themselves in this place for children. The 6 of them regularly squat at the playground, and though Uma still finds it unfortunate that they do not play, she likes to feel included. They continue leaning and they trade wisdom. How to use Vaseline as a moisturizing eyeshadow, how to separate mascara clumps with a tweezer, which outlet in the girls' locker room won't short circuit if they plug in a straightener, things like that. Uma's surprised when Corinne joins in on these conversations, that she has insights of her own to offer. You can predict what letter your future boyfriend's name will start with if you spin an apple stem to the alphabet. Uma only listens intently, feeling too inexperienced to contribute. The boys she and Corinne used to talk about were just playthings, only existing in imaginary realms, never to be acted on. When had that stopped for Corinne? Today, Madison, Catherine, Alyssa, Brady want to talk about tampons. Tampax or bust, Corinne starts like a seasoned menstruator. That's what our stupid schools should have in the bathroom, Madison says, like anyone prefers shoving dry cardboard up themselves. They all laugh knowingly. Uma pretends to understand. She thinks back to the time she and Corinne borrowed The Care and Keeping of You from the library, a preteen how-to their health teacher recommended. They leafed through the pages with more curiosity than for any tabloid. They debated which hole these cardboard tubes belonged in. The drawings were no help. Well, if anything, I've heard they're great for nosebleeds, Corinne said, and they both howled at the ingenuity. Now Uma wonders if Corinne had just played along for her sake. What about you, Uma? Madison asks with a tilt of her chin. What's your brand? Uma tucks a strand of loose hair behind her ear, struggling to remember any brand she's seen even once on television. Just whatever's around the house. Anything works for me. No one seems to think anything of her lame answer, but her mother's words throb in her mind. Late, like me. She'd put such an emphasis on the word late. Uma wishes blood would rush between her legs right now and stain through her jeans. Only Corinne eyes her, then looks the other way, smacks her strawberry gloss lips, knowing the truth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reema. That was wonderful. And thank you so much to all of the readers and to all of our editors who stuck around and introduced these wonderful people. Can we please give them one more round of applause? Yay! Thanks. All right. So that is it for our event today. Thank you again so much for coming. Just so you know, a recording of this event will be up on the website soon. So just in case you want to revisit some of these beautiful pieces. You will also receive a brief survey to offer feedback on this experience. Thank you in advance for filling it out. And finally, please stay in touch with us. You can sign up for our newsletter, which we'll throw in the chat, should be on the chat now. And we hope to hear from you soon. Thank you again so much. Have a great rest of your night.